Welcome to One More Thing. My name is Pastor Brett Watson, and I'm here with Pastor Troy. We're talking about the 6th installment of Tangled. This was really, really good, man. I loved it.
Thanks, man.
So you start off with kind of a short history lesson on the tangled mess that the law became over time, and by Jesus' day, you had the Mishnah and 800 pages of trying to form the details around the 613 laws that are in the Mosaic, the biblical law. When you looked over those numbers again, did you find yourself giggling?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I've read the Mishnah, and
You read the whole Mishnah?
Yeah, I've read. Well, not the whole thing. I mean, it's quite boring, but there's some fascinating ways in which they try to articulate, what accounts for work.
Yeah.
And even Kyle was talking about some things he had saw of how even modern day Jews like today will find loopholes technologically to get around work, and like turning on lights, and it really didn't work because I didn't actually flip the switch.
It was on a timer.
That's right. That's it.
Yeah.
And so they even today they find loopholes around this sort of ridiculous, ridiculous, almost excessive and unnecessary laws.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Our friend Kevin is dating an Israeli woman, and even though she's very secular, there's still this identity associated with all of that stuff. Old Testament, Mishnah, Talmud.
Yep.
And even though she's not religious by any stretch, really, she's just, there's an identity established there. So I guess it still serves that purpose. But nevertheless, it is a serious tangled mess.
Yes.
With respect to what? What does it do that makes it a tangled mess?
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. It obfuscates and blurs, creates disclarity of even what those 613 original laws were trying to point to. And it's what I brought out in the sermon. It's this reverence for God and a respect for all that God has created.
And there's some practical stuff too.
Oh, there were lots of, sort of ritual things, about cleanliness.
Washing before you eat.
Yeah, cleanliness things. Yeah. And, even when you get into more like highly debatable things, culturalistically speaking, like homosexuality or whatever, like those things today are quite irrelevant. Like the eating of shellfish. We understood why that was back then. But that too was an abomination with the Hebrew, a to'evach, wearing fabric that had two different fibers woven together was a to'evach.
Yeah, why though? Do you know why?
Oh yeah, it was to create differentiation, right? That was the whole point of the law. In part was love and respect for God, but this God, like this God.
Yeah, but I mean specifically the two different fibers.
Yeah, because the Persians did that. The Persians wore.
Okay.
The Persians,
I didn't know that.
The Persians wore fibers, two fibers woven together. We're not like that. Their God is different.
Yeah.
Because remember, man, this is not part of the sermon, but like even Pete Enns has done some incredible some scholarly work on even those Hebrews who were pulled out of Egypt still worshipped other gods.
Yes.
And so we know this for a fact. But this was the God, right? This one God. Have no other gods before me is a way of Yahweh saying, those other gods are below me. This is it. So in other words, when the laws are pointing to love God, this one, and respect for all that God has created, like everything.
Yeah.
Even those other gods. And so it gets, again, I don't want to tangle that up too much. But it's because the Hebrews had to create their own distinct religious culture. And the way you do that is to differentiate yourself between others.
I knew that about the tattoos.
Yeah, that's right.
In Leviticus.
Tattoos, clothing, cuisine. you know.
Yeah.
So, but it blurred and tangled up the lines of the ultimate goal for law was to revere God and what God is, and to respect all that God has done. And I brought it to Jesus in the New Testament. Like, even nature points to the greatness of the reverence. You know, we sing the song. What's the song? So will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. It starts from the thing that we don't even think contains any sort of like functional life. Rocks. What's a rock? Well, Jesus says if you don't revere God,
They'll cry out.
they'll cry out.
Yeah.
If you look into the field of lilies, it is God who has clothed those lilies. So even plants have life, but then he goes to the sparrow, and God takes care of them. And now how much more will God take care of you? So all of creation is to be loved, respected, revered because of its creator, right? I have a picture on my fridge at home that Aslan made long time ago. And it's messy. She's colored out of the lines and all those things. And why this is not very professional. Well, it doesn't matter about the creation. It's who made it that matters.
Yeah.
So
Good analogy. Yeah. Perfect, actually. So, all of that, of course, find very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know about everybody else, but I love that. I love that history. And I think it's important to point out that, you know, these scribes and then the rabbis, the Pharisees, and so on, they meant well.
Mm-hmm.
They did. They meant well, because they did identify, or they did desire, it seems, to revere God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so much so they won't even write his name. You know,
That's right.
but it doesn't change the fact that, as you said, it distracts from, you know, what they ended up with, distracts from the overarching goal of the original.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus is trying to untangle that for us.
Right.
So that's where you go into Matthew and the Sermon on the Mount.
That's right.
And it really kind of the beginning of the sermon.
Yeah.
It starts off in that with the Beatitudes and stuff, but where Jesus says, and I think a lot of people are confused by this, right? That I haven't come to throw away the law or to do away with or abolish, but to fulfill them, to complete them.
Mm-hmm.
All that's important to realize, I think, about Jesus. There were some cultural, historical reasons for saying, you can imagine Jesus, you know, he's being accused of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, throwing away the law.
That's right.
And so he's kind of making that point with those people, maybe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's saying more, right?
That's right. He's bringing it, at least how I interpret, he's bringing the law, the true law, not this tangled up mess that the law became. He's bringing the true law to its fruition, and he mentions it in the text I read yesterday. He goes, your righteousness has to go past that of the Pharisees and the scribes. And you think about that. I mean, it's a deeply perplexing statement.
It is.
Because 800 pages of the Mishnah, 2,700 pages of the Talmud, and I got to go beyond that. And he goes, but you don't have to go through that.
Right.
You have to go beyond that. But it goes to the point I made. The simplicity is in its audacity. That don't go 1 mile, go 2. Don't just give him your shirt, give him your coat. Like that is the logical conclusion of
The law of
the
love.
whole law in and
Yeah.
of itself, is to go beyond that righteousness, because that righteousness of the Pharisees and the scribes, even though they meant well, is a convoluted mess of human intuition in trying to somehow dissect the divine, and you can't. It is, I hate to say it, it's simpler than that. I mean, Einstein said it the best, profundity is found in simplicity. Like, and Jesus, don't go 1 mile, go 2. Like, come on, like that's beautiful.
It is.
It's a beautiful
It is.
You know, and the stories I share, you know, really caught people. I mean, that was most of the conversation about the woman caught in the act of adultery. What the law says. And Jesus goes, your law says that. Your tangled up mess requires her life. But we've forgotten whose life it is.
Yeah.
It belongs to God. And so which one of you is without sin, cast that first stone? And they drop it and walk away. And for me, it doesn't show their hypocrisy. It shows that his righteousness goes beyond that. Because righteousness is not about just justice in the consequential or retributive sense. Justice is in the restorative and the reconciliatory sense, man. And Jesus says, you suckers, you loved your own life enough to not kill yourself or kill each other, knowing each other's sins or whatever, but you didn't love hers enough to drop the stone without me even having to say something. Like, dude, that fires me up. Dude, that's what makes me love Jesus, dude. I don't care who's listening or watching. I don't care if you believe Jesus is God, the Son of God, or just his teachings are absolutely life-changing. When you dig in and you give your full contemplative and conscientious self to, like, what is he really saying? Is he just being a good dude? Yeah, see, I saved your life. Go and sin no more. Or is he telling a story that shatters to pieces our inability to see that we do have a divine ability within us to love the unlovable, to love people when they don't deserve it, when they don't expect it. And that's what he does. And that was the challenge I tried to give yesterday is the law is a religious mess.
Yeah.
That is relationless. And you and I talk, man, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but like, dude, why would someone want to sue me for something when you could pick up the phone and just talk to me? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to talk too much personal stuff, but like, if you go through a divorce with someone, and that's a legal proceeding, I understand, it's a legal thing. Mm-hmm. But when you have a relationship with someone, you should be able to sit down and go, all right, our righteousness has to go beyond that of this document's legalness. What do you need? How can I help? How can we
do what's best for all concerned?
That's it. And that should be the driving force, not, oh, these are the statutes of this particular state or whatever.
Yeah.
That's relationless. And I get it. I understand why, because we want to protect ourselves. That's exactly what the freaking Pharisees did when they dropped those stones. It wasn't because they thought Jesus was right or righteous.
Or that he won the argument.
No, they protected themselves because they knew, frick, we are in a pickle with this dude. And that's why I closed the sermon with Jesus became a problem to the problem in order to show us how we can solve the problem by being a problem to that same freaking problem we're experiencing today. And I'm not trying to get too philosophical there, but the point is, that's the death of Jesus. The death of Jesus accounts for the fact that he didn't die for sin. He died because of it. That relationless nature of the law.
Which the church, let's just be frank. The church has fallen right back into that old trap.
GFW Hagel, the one thing we learn from history is that we do not learn from history.
Yeah.
Like Jesus.
At least a lot don't.
Oh, man. And I know we had a lot of questions on that last point too, about the idea of, look, if the law is given to us, and by law, I should have explained it, like the whole of the Old and New Testament.
Yeah.
Like even the New Testament.
Yeah.
If the Bible is given to us as a document to control who we let in and who we keep out, then is Jesus even in that freaking book?
Yeah.
Because the Jesus I know, the God I know, the God that I love and revere, isn't in many of the interpretations. Like, we're interpreting a very, very different God. And I'm an atheist to that God.
Me too, bro.
Yeah, man. Sorry, I don't mean to rant.
No, It's great stuff, and it needs to be heard. In the class after the sermon, there were a lot of people in there, and by the end of the whole discussion around the sermon point, especially that third point you just cited, the chant became, well, let me preface it with this. Stories came up, right? Like stories of that were where that it was difficult to determine what was the right thing to do. Okay. I mean, things from news stories like school shootings to, a guy who marries his secretary and leaves his wife and 2 kids, right? It just varied. But at the end of it, there was a chant. Well, how do we love these people concerned, all the people concerned? How do we love that man who married his secretary to leave his wife and 2 kids? And how do we love the wife that was left? How do we love the kids that were left?
Yeah.
Okay. How do we love the woman he married?
Yeah.
How do we love? What's the best way to love the young man who's lost it and goes in and shoots innocent children out of school? What's the best way to do this? And it boils down to the question, how do we love them?
Yeah.
And that sounds simple, and it is, and it's beautifully simple, I think.
Yeah.
But
it
ain't
difficult.
easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It ain't easy.
Yeah. Simplicity doesn't remove difficulty.
No. A lot of times it adds it.
That's right.
And the law of love that Jesus is taking out of the tangled mess and exposing again. And I do say again because it was a law of love.
Yeah.
Really. But when he brings that clarity to it, it doesn't make things easier for us.
No.
What's easy, right?
Yeah.
Is to now I'm ranting.
No, I like it.
What's easy is to run to the altar.
Yeah.
Shed a few tears and pray a few words.
Yep.
And assume that that's all the transformation that's needed.
That's right.
Which is really nothing, right? There's no real change there, right? I'm sorry, that's not the gospel.
No.
It just isn't.
No.
And any even cursory reading of Jesus' teachings should make that clear.
That's right.
So it's astonishing to me that we are at this point where we've convoluted the whole thing into a transactional kind of setup instead of a relational one. It just blows my mind.
That's right on. Everything Jesus does is points to the law of love. And what he speaks against is love of the law. I drop my stones because I don't know the law of love. I've dropped the stone because I love the law. And he got me on that one. Jesus says when he's on the cross to the guys who nailed him to it, forgive them. They don't know.
Yeah.
Love, law of love. They love the law. This is why we punish people. This is why we want people to feel the pain that I felt, that they caused me. I don't care why you did it. I don't care what underlying motive you had or whatever. You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to find a way. And the law exists in order to enact that sort of justice. And that's love of the law. The law of love is, I forgive you. I want to know how I can love you.
And by the way, loving you the best way I can may include consequences.
That's exactly it.
For the wrong that you've done.
Don't get us wrong. We're not trying to say the guy who shot up the school deserves to go free. That's not what we're saying. We're saying you have to be accountable to the law that is in place, but there is a law of love that should also coincide with that love of the law that keeps people safe, that gets bad guys off the street or what have you. But there is a law that supersedes that from my heart to go. I mean, dude, we've seen the Pope, the guy who shot the Pope.
Yep.
Pope comes out. I want to meet him. Kisses his feet. I showed a clip about a year ago of that mom who's in the courtroom. This kid shoots her son, kills him in cold blood. And she goes, I don't hate you. I don't want to hit you. I want to hug you.
She becomes a mom to that guy, doesn't she?
Yeah, man. Like, you don't have the power to do that.
No.
No, dude, you don't have that power. That is demonstration of transformation.
Yeah.
As opposed to a demonstration of retaliation.
That's what scares us, don't you think? That's what scares us about the law of love, is that it requires transformation.
Oh, yeah.
It will drag you kicking and screaming to transform you. And so it's something that we tend to want to hide from.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if it's a transaction, I don't have to change anything. This is what Jesus did for me, and I cognitively assent to that as a truth. And so
yeah, I'm
good.
That's it.
No, it's not the way it works. And God's not going to leave you there.
No.
He's not going to leave you there.
It's good, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for this. This was a really great and poignant teaching.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Love you.
Love you.